It's very, very exciting to be here today to make this announcement and show how the federal government is supporting the city of Detroit and how, as a direct result of the community's voices being heard, we are here today. We see a location, 540,000 square feet and 150 jobs, actually directly abutting a residential neighborhood in the city of Detroit and supporting that neighborhood as a great corporate citizen. So it gives me great pleasure today to introduce the Assistant Secretary of Commerce, Mr. Williams. Mr. Williams was a White House Deputy Director of White House Office of Intergovernmental Affairs, served as a former mayor of Youngstown, Ohio from the year 2006 to 2011, and he was also the recipient of the 2007 John F. Kennedy New Frontier Award. So without further ado, Secretary Williams.
Good afternoon, Councilman Benson. Thank you for the introduction. As a former mayor, as I'm sure Mayor Duggan can attest, it is impossible to get anything done without insightful and cooperative counsel. So certainly thank you for your introduction and for your leadership in the legislative branch in the city of Detroit. Also want to recognize Corey from Senator Peters' office is here. Thank the Senator for his ongoing support. I've had a number of occasions throughout the last several years to meet with the Senator, and certainly appreciate his support for the Economic Development Administration, particularly and broadly for the administration's initiatives in helping to rebuild the economies in our communities. I particularly also want to thank Mayor Duggan for his leadership. I have known the mayor for the past couple of years, and earlier this year he was at our EDA National Conference. He came and spoke and delivered an impassioned position not only on what he's doing for the city of Detroit, but how it is relevant for communities across the country. And I told him he crossed a very important threshold. My wife, who is much more talented and I was blessed to marry up, she comes to these initiatives and often sometimes gives me a hard time about some of the presenters and the speakers talking about economic development. But after hearing Mayor Duggan for 5 minutes, she was absolutely sold on his passion. So you crossed a very critical threshold in terms of, for whatever it's worth, impressing my wife, who was not easily impressed, particularly as it relates to individuals who talk about what they do. But the mayor's reciting of the things that are going on in Detroit, the opportunities that exist in Detroit, certainly is something that we don't take for granted, and I appreciate the opportunity to be here. Rod Miller of the Detroit Economic Growth Corporation, who I also had the opportunity to meet about a year and a half ago. The talents that he's brought to this community are incalculable. He has done a great work in places like New Orleans and so many other places across the country. So to have him here as a part of the community is certainly one of the assets that the Detroit has. So thank you, Rod, for your leadership. Cliff Kellogg, who is not with us, has led the Detroit Federal Working Group, which consists of 15 agencies doing work on the ground in Detroit. Far too often, the federal government has had an approach where the agencies were siloed. They would all be well-intended and be doing good work in and of themselves, but unless we're able to break through those silos, as the president has been working diligently for the past 7+ years, the effects aren't what they would like them to be. So I certainly, in his absence, thank Cliff Kellogg for the work that he's done and helping to position the city of Detroit to be one of the models that we can point to in terms of the federal-local partnership. So certainly that's not something that we take for granted. And we are proud to be here to make a very important announcement, which will continue the renaissance that has been underway in Detroit since this leadership team has been in place. I'm exceptionally pleased to announce that the U.S. Economic Development Administration is awarding a $910,000 investment to the city of Detroit and the Detroit Economic Growth Corporation to help establish the Economic Recovery Coordination Team. This new team will manage and execute all elements of the reindustrialization efforts of the Detroit in an ambitious undertaking as we rebuild this city's economy. The primary elements of this project will include industrial and logistics business attraction and identification and preparation of industrial sites, districts, and areas throughout the city of Detroit. The increased staffing capacity that this investment represents will help the city accomplish its goals of creating 5,000 new jobs for Detroiters over the next 5 years. In addition to that $900,000 plus investment, I'm pleased to announce that the EDA is also investing $3.2 million in the City of Detroit's Economic Development Corporation and the City of Detroit through the DEGA, and to support the redevelopment of the Georgia Street project. This redevelopment project is a key initiative to support the I-94 Industrial Corridor Redevelopment Initiative, and is part of the city's efforts to bring automotive manufacturing back here to the City of Detroit. According to the estimates that the grantee provided us, this will result in the immediate creation of over 600 new jobs and attract over $120 million in private investment. This will be a catalyst for future good-paying jobs and opportunities for the citizens of the City of Detroit. As in my role as the Assistant Secretary, I have the privilege and opportunity to travel across the country as we make these investments in communities. But prior to that, I had the opportunity to serve as the Director of the Auto Recovery Office, which meant I spent a lot of time on the ground in the state of Michigan, particularly in the City of Detroit, and have seen firsthand the level of collaborations and partnerships that have brought us to this exciting opportunity today. Let me close by saying that the President has made it very clear that the commitment to this city is unequivocal. We, just that 7+ years ago, faced the greatest economic decline this country had seen outside of the Great Depression. We were losing upwards of 800,000 jobs per month. Unemployment exceeded 10%. We saw individuals who had worked for years to build up equity in their homes. We saw that eviscerated overnight. We saw the near collapse of the financial district. And places like Detroit, as hard as it was across the country, suffered even worse. But through the resilience of the American people, through the leadership and collaboration that has been demonstrated by the mayor, the council members, all the other stakeholders here, we are seeing the most robust recovery that this country has experienced in decades. Unemployment's been cut in half. We have seen 75 months of consecutive job growth in the private sector, over 15 million jobs, which is the longest growth streak on record. And we have seen the reforms on Wall Street, and we've seen people start to rebuild their neighborhoods. But it is abundantly clear that we have more work to do. The President has made it clear that we are not going around taking a victory lap or patting ourselves on the back. As a matter of fact, we're spending the last remaining weeks and months in this administration seeking to institutionalize these gains, make sure that we reaffirm the partnerships that we have with the City of Detroit and so many other communities across the country. So on behalf of the President, on behalf of Secretary Pritzker, I'm pleased to be here, but want to also let you know that the Economic Development Administration will continue to be your partner. We will continue to build on the gains that have been established. We will continue to find ways to bring innovation and investment through the partnerships that we have throughout the weeks and months and years to come. That being the case, congratulations, because these aren't monies that are given out. These are investments that are earned. The City of Detroit had to compete with regions with other areas across the region for a scarce pot of money, scarce resources. So the fact that we're investing multi-million dollars here in the City of Detroit speaks to the volumes of commitment, collaboration, and expertise that is here on the ground. Congratulations, it's a privilege to be here, and it's now my privilege and honor to bring up the leader of this great city who has continued to collaborate, who has continued to be an individual that we can point to as a model of success in his leadership, Mayor Mike Duggan. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Assistant Secretary. Jay Williams and I have something else in common. In 2005, he ran one of the most watched mayoral campaigns in Youngstown, Ohio. In Ohio, they elect their mayors on a partisan basis, and of course, you had Democratic mayors elected in Ohio for decades. When he ran, he wasn't going to run as a Democrat or a Republican. He announced he was running as an independent. And everybody said, oh, that's nutty, and they didn't take him seriously. Wasn't quite a write-in campaign, but he shocked a lot of people when he got elected mayor of Youngstown. As an independent, was one of the most popular mayors in America when President Obama tapped him to join the administration. And so he understands what we're up against here in the City of Detroit. The I-94 industrial corridor has been talked about for as long as I can remember, for 20 years. It was on the city's planning documents, and it was basically empty. There were almost no jobs created here, despite the fact the city had assembled a great deal of land. About 2 years ago, Matt Maroon came in and said he wanted to build a huge facility that was going to employ 200 people and be a warehouse for the Detroit Hamtramck plant, and built this beautiful facility. 2 years ago, this was vacant land. And then immediately across the street, in the last year, Shad Khan, the owner of Flexingate, came to us and said he was going to build a 600-employee car plant to make front ends for Fords somewhere in southeastern Michigan. And we pitched him on this neighborhood, and we've succeeded in landing that plant right across the street, which means we're now hiring Detroiters for good-paying jobs with benefits here again in the city of Detroit. We have, in a very short period of time, outstripped the infrastructure for the industrial park. And so the $3.2 million grant is going to allow us to rebuild Georgia and the infrastructure in the surrounding areas so we can go continue to land more plants in this area and continue to bring jobs to the part of the city that has the highest unemployment rate. The other piece, the $900,000 grant, is basically to hire 2 people for 3 years. One of them is somebody who goes out and recruits these parts plants. I'm really glad that Matt Maroon showed up at my office and said, I want to build the warehouse, and Shad Khan showed up at my office and said, I want to build a parts plant. But we aren't doing enough of reaching out to people and letting them know that it's here. And then once we do identify potential candidates to come here, we also need to prepare the land. And a big part of why these grants are so important is this. We're up against very good suburbs with green space in industrial parks ready to go every time we go to get a warehouse or a plant. It's tough competition. And in Detroit, we've got a lot of old infrastructure that needs to be rebuilt. And with the EDA grants today, it goes a long way to level the playing field. And that's all we want, is an equal shot at landing these companies, and we will get more than our share, as we're proving. So thank you again to the Obama administration that's been such a huge partner in Detroit's recovery. Thank you to my friend, Councilman Scott Benson, who's been an active fighter for every bit of development in this neighborhood, and to the Assistant Secretary, Jay Williams. And with that, I want to introduce the man who built this warehouse. And before we're done, the man who is going to redevelop the train station, Matt Maroon.
I think I have my work cut out for me. Thank you, Mr. Assistant Secretary. Thank you, Councilman Benson. And thank you, Mr. Mayor. We're thrilled to be part of this new jobs hub. This building is a $30 million investment in 500,000 square feet. But it's our people that make it happen for this business and not the bricks and mortar. What I mean by that is that over 80% of our workforce are Detroiters. And our workforce is growing. This grant is a key investment in the park, and as the mayor alluded to, it's going to bring us a lot of important and good neighbors to the I-94 industrial park. Logistics and manufacturing businesses and their people don't work in office towers. They work in industrial parks. They work near neighborhoods that they live in. That's what this is. They're real jobs and they're real people. The mayor understands this, the assistant secretary understands this, and our city councilors understand this. And it's because of that leadership that our company had the opportunity to move forward with this. So thank you, a big thank you to all of them and to you. Thank you.
Excellent. So it's also very exciting to know that when you have a win like this, there are lots of moving parts and a lot of players behind the scenes. And so Roderick Miller, when he came to Detroit to take over the Detroit Economic Growth Corporation, inherited an industrial park that had one tenant. And within 2 years, we now have 540,000 square feet of developed space where we're hiring Detroiters. And you have a commitment from Flexingate to come across the street to bring an additional 400 and possibly 600 new jobs to this area. And so while everything is great to have skyscrapers and glass towers downtown, we have to have job centers within our neighborhoods, and this is a testament to that. So with that, I'd like to bring up Roderick Miller.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm so excited to be here today. This is great news. My dad was a military officer, and there were two things that he would say all the time. One was lead, follow, or get out of the way, and the other was make it happen. And I'm really, really happy to be working for Mayor Duggan, working with Tom Lawan, who are doing a phenomenal job in leading the economic development efforts of our city. One of the things that we've seen with Mayor Duggan is that the idea of collaboration isn't something that he just gives lip service to. He works really diligently and has pushed all of us to be very aggressive in working in partnership. So we really appreciate the ties that have been made to the federal government, Secretary Williams for his commitment, and for the EDA's commitment to the Detroit market. We appreciate Councilmember Benson, who we can always count on to understand kind of the dynamics of business and development in the city. So we're really, really excited. As the mayor mentioned, the DGC, we are the city's economic development agency. And in the late 90s, through the Economic Development Corporation, the DGC began acquiring properties and assembling properties, doing demolition of sites, so on and so forth, but we really didn't have the scale of investment that we needed here. Over the last 15 years, we worked diligently to maintain companies such as Detroit Chassis and XL Logistics, but now we're excited to announce that we're able to bring in new companies such as LINC Logistics and Flexingate to this area. This is really exciting because we know that manufacturing jobs pay more on average than other jobs in the economy. We know that Detroit has a rich history of manufacturing, and so we're excited to be a part of this rejuvenation and really serve as in a key role in terms of working with this grant. This grant is direct byproduct of other support that we've received from the federal government through the EDA. The Mount Elliott study said that this area has the potential to bring in more than 10,000 new jobs over the next 10 to 15,000 new jobs over the next 20 years. So we're excited about the goal of 5,000 jobs in the next 5 years and being able to make the investments needed in the infrastructure that's in alignment with the state's expanding of the I-94 capacity, GM's Hamtramck facility adding a third shift, and these other things that are allowing us to really say, you know what, not only is Detroit back, we're back and we're here to stay. I would be remiss if I didn't recognize the team that really helped put this together. Basil Cherian from over in the mayor's office, Malik Goodwin from our team, Madi Toure, and Will Taminga. So we appreciate the team for doing that work, and we're so excited about the great things that are ahead. Thank you.
So in addition to those on the city side and the developers who are working to make this happen, you also have the neighborhood residents who play a vital role in ensuring that new development, when it comes into the community, migrates properly, meshes well with the existing residents who are here. And so a huge challenge is having an industrial park next door to a residence, a residential neighborhood. And so when the call went out saying, you know what, we need someone who's going to be able to organize the community to make sure that the residents' voices are heard, and so that we don't have trucks that's going through our neighborhood, that we don't have any type of negative impacts, that the district knows, that the mayor's office knows, and that the developer knows as well. And so when the call went out to volunteer for someone to organize a community, Mark Covington rogered up. He said, you know what, I know it's going to be a heavy lift, but you can count on me. I'm going to make sure that our residents, their voices are heard, and that we're making an impact when we have a development come into our neighborhood. So with that, I'd like to welcome Mr. Mark Covington.
Good afternoon. I'd just like to say that the community is really excited about the jobs coming to the neighborhood, and we're really excited that companies are engaging us and hearing what we have to say, what our concerns. But I want to say to our community that get involved so you can get informed. There's a lot of things that's going on in the neighborhood that you need to be informed about, so get involved. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Covington. In addition, we also have Mr. Marvis Cofield. So he's the executive director of Akibalon Village, a local CDC that has over 30 years of history and experience in this area. And so when you talk about new development coming to the area, you want to make sure that your community development organizations who have the experience and the relationships with your local residents, they're here at the table as well. So with that, Mr. Cofield.
Once again, we want to thank everyone for being here, of course, the mayor and the government, because it does take a village not just to raise a youth, but to raise a community, a financial district. So let's give them all a big round of applause. I'm Marvis Kofi, Community Director at the Akibalon Village, 34 years, being right behind what used to be vacant land. Let's give all of us another big round of applause. I'm excited, not trying to hide it. It takes all of us to make sure that we are able to live, work, and play in our own neighborhood. For those who used to have to walk maybe 3 or 4 blocks to catch a bus, or may not even have a bus route to get to their job, most of the young people and adults are able to live in this neighborhood who have lived here for years, are able to look out in their backyard and see a multi-million-dollar job opportunities, not just for themselves, but for their children's children. I'm excited about that because we believe in order to rebuild our neighborhood, we have to do it one brick, one building, one block. So once again, congratulations to all of us. Thank you very much.
We just want to make it very clear that 14 months ago, we met at Akibalon Village. So we had 150 residents come out to meet LINC Logistics to find out what they will be doing here, how they could get involved. And one of the main concerns that we heard was that we don't want truck traffic going through our neighborhoods. So I just really once again want to thank Mayor Duggan and Assistant Secretary Williams for coming to the call and hearing the voices of our community, that we need to have this type of improvement to ensure that we can have a cohesive and a relationship between our neighborhoods and the developers where truck traffic is being sent out. In addition, that also allows for additional truck-based or truck-centric developments to come into this neighborhood. So I just really want to thank the administration and the federal government for coming and hearing the voices of our residents. We also have residents who are in need of jobs. And so in August of 2015, we held a series of job fairs throughout the city of Detroit, one being at Second Ebenezer. And I met a young lady named Raven Harris who was looking for a position and told me such. And so it does my heart well to see 16 months later, 14 months later actually, Raven here working at this job with a union position with benefits and living wage salary, where she's able now to feed herself, her family, and be upwardly mobile. So just really want to welcome Raven Harris.
Hello, my name is Raven Harris, and I want just to say that I really appreciate Mr. Maroon and my whole staff for allowing me to have this job. It's one of the best jobs I've ever had. It's changed me and my kids' life so much. I was able to move into our own home when I got this job. Was able to save and everything. I'm just really appreciative. I love my job. I love my bosses. I love my supervisors. I love the fact that I don't have to go a million miles to get to work. I live 8 minutes from here, so that's awesome. Like, everything about it I like. I really do. I appreciate everyone that's behind putting this organization together, this building. I just wanted to say thank you to everyone.
And so just really want to say that while we always talk about what's going on downtown, Detroit resides in its neighborhoods. And so what's happening here impacts the entire city. These are the stories that you don't often hear, but are being told and are being built brick by brick every day. So once again, I just want to make sure that we acknowledge Mr. Matty Maroon, that we acknowledge Mayor Duggan, and that we acknowledge Assistant Secretary Williams for making this happen and helping to employ the city of Detroit and expand our tax base. This is a direct result of our residents speaking directly to the developers and to the administration. Community benefits are being delivered in the city of Detroit.
Any questions? How many acres have we got in this area? Okay, Basil Cherian, come on up. He's the brains behind this. So he sits in the back. He's going to be able to answer that for you.
We've got about the entire I-94 industrial park is about 200 acres. It's a combination of publicly and privately owned land, and you know, as the city of Detroit, we still have you know, probably 30 to 50 acres left that we're actively looking to develop. You know, excluding the Flex and Gate facility, which will go right across the street.
It's interesting. Well, they're going to, Basil, you might want to stay here. So we'll talk about the details of what we're going to put into the infrastructure here.
So specifically with respect to Georgia Street, so what the plan is to resurface, Georgia Street is a street that's right outside here, and we're planning to resurface it between Mount Elliott and St. Cyril. So it'll widen the street, and we'll resurface it. The advantage to that, obviously, is you'll have truck traffic coming from both the north and south side of Georgia Street when Flex and Gate is across the street. And so we think this will facilitate both the trucks coming in from the south and the north, as well as the planned truck route, which heads west towards Mount Elliott and towards I-94. That allows us to really avoid having residential areas be impacted by truck traffic.
So basically what this is saying is every time we go to try to develop a new plant in this area, the first thing that happens is the neighbors come out and say, where are the trucks going to go and how are they going to affect us? And it's a legitimate concern. And so with the rebuilding of Georgia, you will now have the truck route in and out of here that will get you to the I-94 freeway. And from 94, you get to 75. We can supply plants east, west, north, and south, all from this location, which is why it was thought to be attractive when it started 20 years ago. With the redevelopment of Georgia, it means the next plant that comes along, we can tell them all the infrastructure is in place. It gives us a significant competitive advantage landing future programs.
So this is the primary truck route that we've designated through this part of the park. So we would anticipate that the planning will start immediately, and we would anticipate that in the spring of 2017, actual construction would begin on Georgia Street. And we intend to have it wrapped up before next December.
We're having these conversations every day, and a big part of our strategy and partnership with the auto industry is to start bringing parts plants back from Mexico. And we think that is a realistic possibility. I want to make sure when they do come back from Mexico, we actually have a place to accommodate them in the city of Detroit, as opposed to force them to go to surrounding communities, which has happened too often in the past. Anything else? Thank you all very much for coming.